Ovo je Al Jazeera Svijeta, ja sam Azra Hadžić. U nastavku ove priče. Istaknuti američki istraživački novinar kaže da bi više od 6.000 ubijene djece u Gazi trebalo biti trajna mrlja na Bidenovoj ostavštini. Palestinsko-kanadska advokatica za ljudska prava Diana Buttu govori da se ono čemu svjedočimo u Pojasu Gaze ne može smatrati činom osvete za 7. oktobar. Povratak iz Gaze u Kijev. Kako je rat zamijenjen ratom? Jeremy Scahill, američki je istraživački novinar, pisac, suosnivač nagrađivanog online medija The Intercept. Za Al Jazeeru se osvrnuo na političku karijeru američkog predsjednika Joea Bidena dugo 50 godina i identificirao ključne trenutke u kojima je branio navodne ratne zločine Izraela. Biden je na javnoj dužnosti 50 godina, a za to vrijeme bio je jedan od najvećih branitelja Izraela, čak i onda kada je ubijao civile. Scahill tvrdi da su američko oružje i novac omogućili izraelske napade na Gazu i da bi više od 6.000 ubijene djece trebalo biti trajna mrlja na Bidenovoj ostavštini.
His legacy should be the deaths of the children of Gaza. That should be a permanent stain on his legacy.
Were there not an Israel, the United States of America would have to invent an Israel.
There are almost no figures in the modern history of American politics who have been stauncher supporters of Israel when it's at its worst, when it's committing its worst crimes than Joe Biden.
Jeremy Scahill is a senior correspondent for and one of the founders of The Intercept. He recently wrote about US President Joe Biden's historic ties to Israel and why it's no surprise that he's been defending Israel as it's massacred over 11,500 Palestinians since October 7th.
Israel launches this scorched earth campaign. 1 in 200 Gazans have been killed. More than 4,000 children have been killed. It seems as though there is no action that Israel could take that would be too extreme for Joe Biden.
That's been the case since Biden first joined the US Senate in 1973, just a few months before the Fourth Arab-Israeli War. That year, Senator Biden met with Israel's then Prime Minister Golda Meir, a story he's shared often.
She sat there, chain smoking, and reading letters from the front. She could tell I was visibly moved by this.
Joe Biden said that was a very consequential meeting for him. And when you review Joe Biden's career, when Israel is being accused of killing civilians, when Israel is committing war crimes, Joe Biden sort of serves as the American defender of Israel's conduct.
In 1982, Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin visited the US to meet with senators after Israel had invaded Lebanon and started a campaign that killed thousands of civilians.
And many of the senators in that meeting are grilling Menachem Begin about the rising civilian death toll in Lebanon. But according to Menachem Begin, this young senator rises up and actually says that it's acceptable to kill women and children, and that if his country was facing the threats like Israel is from Lebanon, that he would do this also. And Menachem Begin, you should understand, himself is a notorious war criminal.
Begin had led the Irgun, a right-wing Zionist militia whose men had massacred more than 100 Palestinian civilians at Deir Yassin in 1948, part of a campaign of violent ethnic cleansing.
So Menachem Begin himself is shocked at the comments from this young senator, and that senator was Joe Biden.
There's no apology to be made. None. It is the best $3 billion investment we make.
He loves to say he's Israel's best Catholic friend.
You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist.
You know, those words send a very specific message. I mean, look around the world right now. So many Jewish people are actually opposed to what Israel is doing. And those voices are excluded by these sort of folksy narratives that Joe Biden puts forward as what does it mean to support Israel.
The support for Israel continued when Biden was vice president. When Israel raided a humanitarian flotilla carrying aid to Gaza in 2010, killing 10 people, Biden defended Israel's actions on The Charlie Rose Show.
It's legitimate for Israel to say, I don't know what's on that ship. These guys are dropping 3,000 rockets on my people.
They never found any weapons on the ship. All of them were civilians killed, but Joe Biden is out there front and center defending Israel on American television.
And now as president, Biden has not only refused to call for a ceasefire, but his administration is actively arming Israel in its campaign against Gaza.
The United States has facilitated this entire operation. It's American weapons that have been used to do it. It's American money that's been used to do it. And most importantly, It's the political support from the highest office in the most powerful nation on earth that made this possible. No one should ever forget that.
Diana Buttu je palestinsko-kanadska advokatica za ljudska prava i bivša glasnogovornica Palestinske oslobodilačke organizacije. Poznata je po svom radu kao pravna savjetnica i sudionica u izraelsko-palestinskim mirovnim pregovorima od 2000. do 2005. godine. Sarađuje sa univerzitetima Stanford, Harvard i Institutom za bliskoistočno razumijevanje. Za Al Jazeeru govori da ono čemu svjedočimo u Pojasu Gaze zapravo se ne može smatrati činom osvete za 7. oktobar, već, kako kaže, etničkim čišćenjem i genocidom.
This is ethnic cleansing and genocide, and I want to be clear on this. The Israeli ministers, even before October 7th, were talking about a solution, as they would put it, for the Gaza Strip. This is nothing new. They've been talking about having to get rid of the Gaza Strip for many, many years. There's a minister, the Minister of Finance, is a person who said that the only reason that Palestinians remain is because the Israelis didn't finish off the job in 1948. They didn't ethnically cleanse us in 1948. And this is before October 7th by a year. So all of this has been leading up to it. What they're doing now is they've been given the green light to carry out this ethnic cleansing and genocide. And that's why you see the ways in which the Israelis have been bombing and the Palestinian victims of Israeli bombings. We see that 42% of those who've been killed in the Gaza Strip are people who are in the so-called safe areas. So what Israel is doing is carrying out a genocide, it's carrying out ethnic cleansing, and the world is just simply watching at this point. So occupation is violent. To live under occupation means to live under daily violence. What does that mean? It means that we are not free, that we don't have the ability to determine our future, to determine the affairs of our own lives, that somebody else is ruling over us. It means that for a mother, she doesn't know if her children are going to be arrested on a daily basis for anything ranging from carrying a flag to a post on social media, to attending a rally, to you name it. It means that we don't have the ability to determine our future in terms of where it is that we're going to live. It means that a Palestinian from the West Bank who may have family members in the Gaza Strip can't see their family. It means that that people from the Gaza Strip, they dream of being able to visit their friends and their family in all parts of Palestine. That's what Israeli occupation is about. It's about crushing Palestinians and ruling over their lives. Now, at the same time, Israel isn't just occupying us, they're colonizing us. They've stolen Palestinian land from Palestinians. They've kicked them off of that land, and in their place, they've put Israeli settlers. Now, Israeli settlers don't just come and live there, they come and live there with the army, which means that there are now checkpoints in place, which means that there are roads that are off limits to Palestinians. That's what settler colonialism is. There's a system of superior rights for people who are Jewish and inferior rights for people who are Palestinian. We live under separate rules. There's even a separate court system in place for Palestinians versus Israelis. So a person charged with the same crimes, the Israeli will go under a different court system than the Palestinians. They'll receive a different sentence, if they're ever sentenced, than the Palestinians are. And so every day is to live under violence. And what pains me is that the world and history did not begin on October 7th of 2023. We as Palestinians have been living under a very brutal regime now since 1948. And to dismiss all of Israel's actions and to somehow start the clock of history on October 7th is the height of dehumanization. It is the height of it. It's to somehow say that Palestinian abuse should be normalized, that the violations of our human rights are normal and should be just excused, but they shouldn't be excused. We are also humans, and to have to constantly be explaining to people that we deserve our freedom, again, is to feed into the system of dehumanization. Hanan, today as we're speaking, there are over 10,000 Palestinians who've been killed by Israel just in the Gaza Strip alone in the course of 1 month. More than 2,000 people remain under the rubble. Almost half of those people are children under the age of 18. These are children who've never seen a day of freedom in their lives, who, if they're anything over than 13 years of age, they've lived through 5 wars. This is not a life for them. And it's up to the world community to finally bring this to an end. But instead, they're fueling it and funding it and giving Israel a green light.
Dr. Ghassan Abu Sita, britanski plastični hirurg palestinskog porijekla, boravio je u Gazi nakon 7. oktobra i radio u 2 najveće bolnice. Vratio se u London i planira predati dokaze o, kako tvrdi, višestrukim izraelskim ratnim zločinima.
Ghassan Abu Sita više nije u Gazi, ali kaže da ga ne napušta osjećaj krivice zbog odlaska kao ni bolne uspomene i na ono što je sam doživio i na patnje pacijenata koje je morao liječiti nakon što je nestalo anestetika.
Inflicting this kind of pain to children, but at the same time knowing that they were starting to show signs of sepsis, of infection, and that this needed to be done as soon as possible. That was probably the most difficult thing. And the most difficult thing for the parents who understood and stood there while their child was screaming.
Vodeći plastični hirurg krenuo je iz Britanije nakon napada Hamasa na zajednice u južnom Izraelu, svjestan, kako kaže, da kasnije neće moći ući u pojas Gaze. Radio je u bolnici Al-Shifa, gdje je svjedočio raspadu zdravstvenog sistema koji se našao na meti neprekidnih napada. I u bolnici Al-Ahli, u obje ističe, vidio je jasne dokaze izraelskih ratnih zločina koje će predati britanskoj policiji.
And the targeting of patients trying to get to Al-Ahli hospital, the use of phosphorus on civilians in open areas, the use of fragmentation missiles, the targeting of Al-Ahli hospital, all of these things are part of what needs to be done to give justice to the victims.
Izrael poriče upotrebu bijelog fosfora, međutim, dr. Abu Sita kaže da je liječio pacijente sa povredama karakterističnim za njega, dubokim hemijskim opekotinama do samih kostiju. Izraelske vlasti također tvrde da je eksploziju na parkingu bolnice Al-Ahli 17. oktobra, u kojoj su ubijene stotine ljudi, izazvala neispravna palestinska raketa. Abu Sita je tada bio u bolnici i kaže da je ono što je vidio kontradiktorno tome.
The types of injuries that I saw, the types of wounds that these injuries had, all of what had happened to the health system before and after, I'm in no doubt.
Londonska policija potvrdila je da je dobila niz prijava vezanih za ratne zločine u Gazi i da će sve informacije koje ocijeni kao vjerodostojne biti proslijeđene Međunarodnom krivičnom sudu koji vodi istragu o ratnim zločinima na okupiranim palestinskim teritorijama.
Izrael je ove godine uništio gotovo 1000 civilnih objekata na okupiranoj zapadnoj obali. 180 ih je srušeno kao kaznena mjera, što je kršenje međunarodnog prava. Jedan od takvih je i slučaj nedavnog rušenja kuće u izbjegličkom kampu zapadno od Ramale. Objekt je pripadao porodici 41-godišnjeg Palestinca ubijenog ranije ove godine nakon što je optužen za ubistvo izraelskog vojnika na kontrolnom punktu.
Uništen je dom jednog radnika. Davud Daras bio je jednostavan čovjek koji je nastojao voditi miran život. Radio je u Izraelu, a živio u izbjegličkom kampu. Politika ga nije zanimala. U augustu 2 sedmice prije nego što je na kontrolnom punktu ubio izraelskog vojnika, čuvari su ga pretukli i ostavili unakaženog. Njegov brat kaže da se je Davud tada slomio.
تعرض لتنكيل من قوات الاحتلال على حاجز نعلين. ضربوه ضرب مبرح وحطوا راسه على الزفته.
Izraelski vojnici ušli su u selo u ponedjeljak kasno navečer. Mjesto koje su 3 generacije nazivale domom nestalo je u trenu. Zabranjeno im je da raščišćavaju. Izraelska država tvrdi da su čak i ruševine njeno vlasništvo.
This is the kind of collective punishment that Palestinians say Israel carries out at will across the occupied territories. Elsewhere in the world it would be unacceptable, barbaric even. But here, it happens so frequently, it's become routine.
Davudova udovica i 6 djece sada su beskućnici. Kaže da je noć dobro prošla jer niko nije povrijeđen. Djeluje ravnodušno. Zbog šoka ili otpora, teško je reći. Mislima je na drugom mjestu.
الحجار بعوض الله ده عمود الدار راح فيش أسف على الدار الحمد لله رب العالمين خلاص إيش انتهى الدار انتهت خلاص.
Davudova porodica živjela je na prvom spratu pa su izraelski vojnici samo njega digli u zrak. Nepotpuno uništenje, proračunato i okrutno, ostavljeno kao upozorenje. Baš kao i ostavljeni leci s porukom da novac može popraviti kuću, ali ne i razorenu porodicu.
Brojni Ukrajinci žive u Gazi. Sada kada su napustili Palestinu, vratili su se u matičnu, ratom zahvaćenu zemlju. Porodica koju smo posjetili, izraelsku invaziju, zamijenila je ruskom.
Sada u Kijevu Irina Lipina je drugi put raseljena zbog rata. U braku je s Palestincem, pa su se sa malom kćeri odlučili preseliti u relativno mirnu Gazu, nakon što je Rusija napala njenu zemlju.
Мы прекрасно знаем, что там идет периодически война. Но там война раз в 2 года, неделю, 2 недели, максимум месяц и вот спокойно. То есть они понимают...
Kada je ovaj rat izbio 7. oktobra, njihovo susjedstvo u Gazi bilo je više puta pogođeno, prisiljavajući ih da se presele u drugo područje južnije, koje je također bilo napadnuto.
В подземном паркинге спали. Ну, для меня это нормально, потому что когда началась война, мы в Украине в подземном паркинге там дней 5 спали. А для них это вообще непривычно.
Kaže da se njihova kći Daša, koja ima 4 godine, navikla na zvukove rata.
То есть она понимала, что идет война, что ракеты летят, но она спала очень хорошо. У нее, в отличие от детей, которых мы видели.
Sa drugim državljanima Ukrajine, Irina i njezina kćerka napustile su Gazu preko prelaza Rafah. Njen suprug ostao je čuvati roditelje.
Каждое утро, буквально на полчаса появляется интернет, он нам пишет, и мы ему отписываем, то есть как дела. Но самый главный вопрос, есть ли у них еда, вода, спокойно ли, все живы-здоровы. Ну, слава Богу, все хорошо.
Sada se želi ponovo nastaniti u Kijevu s nadom u bolju budućnost.
У меня есть ребенок, то есть у многих, у кого есть дети, мы живем ради детей, правильно? Я надеюсь, что будет хорошо, потому что все войны...
Za sada oba mjesta ona naziva domom, a oba su u središtu brutalnog rata.
Razni kulturni i politički događaji širom svijeta otkazani su ili odgođeni zbog rata u Gazi. Mnoge utjecajne osobe iz oblasti kulture kažu kako se suočavaju s restriktivnim mjerama. U nekim slučajevima događaji koje organiziraju otkazani su zbog podrške Palestincima.
Ovo je djelo Anaisa Duplana, afrofuturističkog umjetnika poznatog po govorima o važnosti borbe za slobodu, ali kada se udaljio od afričke politike i na društvenim mrežama kritikovao rat u Gazi, muzej Folkwang u Njemačkoj otkazao je njegovu izložbu.
It was bizarre to us to encounter the museum almost wanting to have your cake and eat it too, something like this, like to want to hire people for their radical politics in one area.
Mnogi događaji širom svijeta otkazuju se nakon rata u Gazi uz objašnjenje da to čine iz poštovanja, no pojedini misle da ih se zapravo želi ušutkati. Galerija Lisson u Londonu odgodila je izložbu kineskog umjetnika Ai Weiweia. Za Al Jazeeru je rekao da je razlog to što je glasno govorio o ratu u Gazi.
Čini se da je današnja politika takva da svi izbjegavaju doprinijeti i bježe od odgovornosti. Svijet u kojem živimo podsjeća na srednjovjekovno doba.
Sajam knjiga u Frankfurtu odgodio je dodjelu nagrade palestinskoj autorici Adani Šibli za knjigu Sporedni detalj. Organizator Litprom kaže da je to uslijed rata koji je počeo Hamas, a zbog kojeg pate milioni ljudi u Izraelu i Palestini. Američko-jevrejski pisac Nathan Trall također se suočio s otkazivanjem brojnih događaja u Velikoj Britaniji i Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama vezanih za promociju knjige Dan u životu Abida Salama.
Over and over and over again we have these wars in Gaza, and everybody, when we have these wars, calls for a restoration of calm. What is the calm that everyone is calling for us?
Na jednom događaju dijelio bi pozornicu u Houstonu sa zastupnicom u zastupničkom domu Rashidom Tlaib. No, komora ortodoksnih Jevreja proglasila je pobjedu nakon što je uvjerila hotele Hilton da otkažu događaj.
We will not be intimidated. We will not be silenced. And we will not stop until we save lives.
I dok se Gaza suočava sa strahotama, pisci, umjetnici i političari koji podržavaju Palestince kažu da gašenje slobode govora nije put naprijed.
To je sve u ovoj emisiji. Pratite nas i na portalu balkans.aljazeera.net. Doviđenja.